Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm in the small town of Taupo in the Waikato district of the North Island of New Zealand, and over my shoulder is Mount Taupo. That's a very sacred mount in the culture of the Maori people of New Zealand. It's used as a burial ground for members of the Waikato tribe, and it's also towards the summit is where the kings and queens of the Maori royal family are buried. It's quite a trek to carry the casket up there when the occasion arises. So this setting does tie into today's topic. So yesterday I was doing a trek myself, or a hike myself, up a mount just further down the road, about 10 kilometres down the road in Ngarawahia. And I climbed a mount probably about 350 metres high, fairly steep actually, because I went straight up the middle steps. It's about 1400 steps, but fortunately I still seem to have the energy to undertake such things. And while I was on that trek, it came to me that today's subject, I think I really wanted to speak about something that was a very seminal moment in my life. Another tie-in with this hike that I did yesterday, I was had my day pack on, and I will show this to you because it does have a very important part to play in what I'm going to talk about today. So I'll just hold that up for you now. So just a small day pack. It came as part of a two-pack situation, a big backpack that I bought in 1996. And it was known as a ferry down, made by a company in New Zealand at the time, no longer in existence, and very well made, as it turns out. That's a very important part to play in this story as well. So I'll get into today's topic, and as you can see perhaps from the title I've given to this video, Staring Death in the Face. I have talked a little bit about my experiences on the spiritual realm, and a few days ago I spoke about when I undertook a ceremony in Peru in 2025, which led to me seeing what I believe to be first level heaven. And you can read a lot more about this in my story, or have a look at some of the other videos. And I aligned that with a near-death experience. So that wasn't a physical near-death experience. That was perhaps a more visual and emotional near-death experience. And I have no doubt that it was very close to what people who have experienced such things see. I talk a lot about the bright white light that I saw there. So that had a massive impact on my life. But the story today also had a massive impact on my life. And it came in February 2024, so some time before I had travelled to Peru. And it involved a situation where in late 2023 I'd met a traveller from Ireland, a young lady, just I'll say randomly, but we'll call it synchronicity in the spiritual world. And we got on very well, and I write extensively about her in my main story, which is on my website. And she had to, soon after meeting her, she had to return to Ireland, or leave New Zealand. Her visa had run out and she wasn't able to stay any longer. So she actually returned to Ireland. Now I'll just mention that this particular person is a free spirit. She is a world traveller. She didn't want to really settle back into Ireland, and she'd done some pretty interesting adventures in her life, so I expected that she was just going to continue doing so. But in early 2024, she actually asked me if I'd like to accompany her on her next trip, and she had planned to walk from the city of Faro in southern Portugal up to Lisbon. And she wanted to know if I would meet her in Lisbon and we could travel around Portugal and Spain for a period of time. Now I was working at the time, and it was a casual contract, but I had no hesitation in making the decision to go and spend more time with her and see a part of the world that I really hadn't had much experience with before. So I handed in my notice, and made the necessary trip arrangements and headed over and met her in Portugal, and we spent 3 or 4 weeks in Portugal. Then we moved on to Spain. And the story I'm going to relate today, very major impact on my life, very seminal moment. So we travelled towards the south and we ended up in the town of Tarifa. So Tarifa is the southernmost town in Spain. And one day we decided to go for a walk on the cliff top. So the cliffs, I'm not quite sure how far above the beach they are, but probably somewhere around about 150 metres above the beach. And there's a path that if you carry on the path, you actually end up being able to see Gibraltar. But anyway, into this walk, she was leading well out in front, you know, a very fit young lady. She'd had a lot of experience in guiding in various settings, which ended up being very important. Anyway, she made a decision that we'd head down to the beach, and she took a path that was heading down. But as we went down and I looked ahead, she was quite some distance ahead, and I noticed that it was getting quite steep. And even for herself, a very experienced hiker, she seemed to be struggling a bit, but I just sort of carried on. And the further I got into the walk, the steeper it got. And I was actually ended up sort of holding on to some of the bushes by the side as we went down, but we were making progress towards the beach. However, probably around about 10 metres above the beach, we reached a very, very small part of the track, so it was very thin, as it turned out, just enough room to really sit down on. And further along the cliff face, or that path, it got even narrower, and beyond the narrow part was a wider track which would have taken us down to the beach. But what actually happened was I got to the first part of this narrow part of the track and decided I couldn't go any further. Just in my mind, I couldn't go any further. And I looked over to the thinner part of the track, and there was no way in my mind that I was going to be able to go along there. And the conundrum I found myself in was that because I'd come down a very steep path, I also thought that I couldn't go back up that way. So I became trapped, very much trapped in my mind, and I guess I really started to show a lot of anxiety, and that anxiety just grew and grew. And I can't tell you how long this anxiety was with me, because effectively it went beyond anxiety. It went as far as pure fear. So I was stuck on this little ledge, so to speak, or a little part of the track. Didn't know how to get out of it, and I started to say to her that I actually thought I was going to end up dying there. So I was really talking myself into a really bad situation. Fortunately, she did not panic. Now, as I mentioned, she had guiding experience, so she did know how to handle emergencies. But what happened for me is I actually started crying, freaking out. I was asking her to ring for help, and she said it wouldn't be necessary. Well, not at that stage anyway. And I actually started sort of screaming, you know, like at the top of my voice, you know, help, get me out of here. So I'd lost it completely. Start to feel the energy go out of my body as well. And I sat down on the track, or on the ledge. So it was just enough room for me to sit down. And even sitting down, I started to lose more energy, and I thought I was just going to topple off. Now, below us was the beach, but the beach was covered in rocks. So the situation there was, just added to that, was if I fell onto the rocks, it wasn't really going to be a great result. It was either going to be death in my mind, or I was going to be pretty wrecked. Anyway, after a number of minutes, she finally realised she needed to take charge of the situation, and I was wearing the backpack that I just showed you. So she suggested that I stand up and face inward to the cliff, and she was standing on the thinner part of the ledge, and she was going to hold the straps of the backpack. So I'll just hold that up again. So she was going to hold those two parts, and I was going to edge along while she was holding on to me. So I guess I probably just thought, well, this is the only option, it's the only way out, and I put my trust in her. And I stood up facing into the cliff, and she held on to those straps, and I started edging towards the thinner part of the trek, or the track I should say. And within a few steps my feet gave way, totally gave way. So the track gave way, and I ended up feet dangling over the cliff with her holding onto me by this backpack. Now fortunately it was very, very well made back in 1996. I'm not too sure if perhaps a cheaper version would have held me whatsoever. However, getting back to that moment in time, everything just stood still, and I looked down and I saw the rocks, and she was holding on, and I said to her, let go. And the reason I said let go was I didn't want to take her with me. And she said, I'm not letting go. So I didn't look up, but if I looked up, I imagine that I would have seen, well, I could only describe it as perhaps having been to Peru. There's this imaginary Amazonian tribe that lives there, or mythical I should say, maybe not imaginary, of superhuman ladies. And I imagine if I looked up, I would have seen this superhuman being holding onto me. But within seconds, or within a very short period of time, she'd managed to get her arms under my armpits. So she was now holding me by the armpits. So again, on reflection, I just really can't imagine, how she managed this. She was shorter than me. She was certainly strong, but just holding myself up, it was just amazing. So in that moment, I looked down again. I just saw a small ledge below me, and I suggested that she lowered me down onto that ledge. It was about half a metre down, which she did. And I stood there, sort of pressed into the cliff, and she went down to the beach. So she went down the track to the beach, and she came back up the rocks, and we did I guess a step-by-step rock climb down to the beach. I got to the beach, and I just stood there looking out over, it's the southernmost town in Spain, looking out over the water, and in the distance was Morocco in Africa. And the adrenaline was just rushing, and just the situation I'd just been through was just, I was just absorbing everything that had happened, as close as I'd been to death. Anyway, situation as it stood, of course, that's a very short version of what happened. We went back to town, and I sat down and got a drink, and just a smoothie, and she took a photo of me, and in that photo I looked very chastened. Anyway, the situation there, or what I wanted to sort of tie in about this sort of facing or staring death in the face, when one goes through those situations and one realizes how fragile life is, and also when I tie in everything else that has happened on my journey, I have this realization that the universe has put me here for a reason, and saved me in that situation and got me through some dark times. Closest I've been to death was that. And that's the reason I'm now proceeding with my mission to, while that particular story might not seem to have too much light to it, on reflection it does, because it's helped make me the person I am today. And while it's just a wondrous sort of amazing situation that I got myself into, and I don't mean that in a flippant way, I just mean that in the it's hard to comprehend that it happened, but it did. There's so many elements to that just lead into me having to carry on this mission of bringing light, and saying to people that we really do need to try and deal with these maybe the big questions of life, just get some understanding on them, maybe get on a journey if we're in a situation where we're just not happy, so to speak. We just got to get out there and get on a path that will take us to a good place where we can just enjoy the light, just enjoy life. That's what it's about. And if you can bring light to others, that's a bonus, and that's what I'm doing here. So I thought I'd just share that with you. It's in my main story. I'd encourage you to go and have a read if you want of my whole story. I've got these videos going up every day on my Instagram, and as always, I'm going to thank you for listening to me. I was going to say I hope that brought you some light, but I think it does. And I'll say to you, enjoy the journey. We will meet when we should. And namaste.